My name is Faith.
I'm Matt.
I'm Caitlyn.
I'm Logan.
I'm Michaela.
And we are Dr. Bopp's thesis group, and our research is on the effect of presentation time and age on NBAC performance.
Okay, so who would like to participate in our NBAC task? It's okay, we're going to do it together. So for the NBAC task that we're going to do right now, we're going to do a 3-back task. And so you will see a series of letters presented on the screen, one after another. For each letter that is presented, you will make a decision, yes or no. You will say yes if the letter on the screen is the same that was presented 3 back. You will say no if the letter on the screen is not the same as the letter that was presented 3 back. So we'll all say the answers together. No.
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 Yes.
No. 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 Yes. Yes.
So good job. You just did a 3-back task. So for this task, these are the letters that you just saw. So we said yes to the S, to this T, to this L, and to this J. So for example, you said yes to this L because it matches the L that was presented 3 back. So all of our participants completed 1 back, 2 backs, and 3 backs. Obviously 3 back being the hardest because you're constantly having to update the information that you're remembering as you go.
So NBAC is a way to measure working memory. So N refers to memory load, or the amount of items being held for processing, and as N increases, as does the amount of items held in the working memory. Performance on the NBAC task is measured by accuracy and response time.
So working memory is a really important aspect for learning, but it's also used in everyday tasks. So working memory is the active processing of information in the moment and the storage of that information. It has a limited capacity and a limited duration. So one example of how we use working memory is by reading. So you have to store the first part of the sentence while you're reading the second part of the sentence to understand it as a whole, and that's done through working memory.
So this is a model of working memory. The focus of attention refers to the zone of immediate access. So items held here are in the individual's immediate attention. The focus of attention can hold about 1 to 4 items simultaneously, and it can also pull from the region of direct access. Items in the region of direct access are available but not immediately accessible, and they are subject to decay. Therefore, when an item from the region of direct access is needed for processing, focus switching occurs. And focus switching is the process by which an item from the region of direct access is brought to the focus of attention, so that item will now be in the individual's immediate attention.
So past research shows that working memory declines in ability along with normal aging. So as adults get older, they have a harder time performing tasks that require working memory. So we see this effect in Dr. Bopp's meta-analysis, which is just looking at NBAC performance. So when older adults' performance on the NBAC is compared to younger adults' performance on the NBAC, we see consistently that older adults perform significantly worse than the younger adults do. There's not a clear conclusion on what exact cognitive processes are causing that deficit in the older adults, but one theory is that the problem occurs in focus switching, which is what we just discussed. So for older adults, they have a harder time focus switching, they're slower and less accurate in doing this process.
Yes, and so the purpose of our current study was to examine the effect of timing of the stimuli on the screen did to performance. So all throughout this PowerPoint, you will see that we have presented you with accuracy data, but we also measured and analyzed reaction time data.
Yeah, so in our study we used 3 programs. In each program there were 2 conditions. And the purpose behind these programs was to manipulate the timing, and that includes the total time, the stimulus time, and the blank time. The first program we used was called the mixed program. The reason why it was mixed is because the 2 conditions had different total times. So in the first condition we used 2,000 milliseconds for both the stimulus and the blank. And that was broken up evenly, 1,000 milliseconds for the blank, or I'm sorry, 1,000 milliseconds for the stimulus and 1,000 milliseconds for the blank. As you can see, it says 10T, 10B below that, and that's what it's referring to, 1,000 for the target and 1,000 for the blank. In the second condition, we doubled it, gave the participants 4,000 milliseconds per letter, and that was also broken up evenly, 2,000 for the letter and 2,000 for the blank. Now the second program we used was called the slow program. We gave the participants 4,000 milliseconds in both conditions. In the first condition, we showed the participants the letter for 400 milliseconds and then replaced it with a blank screen for 3,600 milliseconds. Now this is a very long time. You're looking at a blank screen for over 3.5 seconds. In the second condition, we flipped the numbers, showed the participants the letter for 3,600 milliseconds, which again is a very long time, and then replaced it with a blank screen for 400. The final program was the fast program. The reason why we called it fast is because from the slow program, we cut all the timing in half. In the first condition, we showed the participants the letter for 200 milliseconds, which is a very short amount of time. You don't have much time to think. And then we replaced it with a blank screen for 1,800 milliseconds, totaling 2,000. And then again, in the second condition, we reversed the numbers, 1,800 milliseconds for the letter and 200 milliseconds for the blank. Again, the purpose behind these programs was to manipulate the timing.
So our study had 4 hypotheses. Our memory load hypothesis was that accuracy would decrease from 1 back to 2 back to 3 back. Our timing hypothesis was that accuracy would increase when the letters were presented on the screen for longer periods of time. So in addition to our in-back manipulations, we also compared older adults' performance to younger adults' performance, and our hypothesis was that older adults would have lower accuracy than younger adults on all in-back tasks. And our participants were given at the end a open-ended strategy questionnaire. And our hypothesis was that participants who did use a strategy performed better than participants who did not use a strategy at all. And so for all our programs, it's set up the graphs are set up the same: accuracy on the y-axis and memory load on the x, comparing younger adults and older adults for both conditions. And our results show that for the mixed program, that as memory load increased, accuracy decreased.
So again, one of the main purposes of the study was to manipulate the timing and to see if that would have any effects on the results. So for this mixed program, we did find significant effects. If you look on the graph for the younger adults, we see that when they were looking at the letter for the longer period of time, this significantly increased their accuracy scores for the 2-back and the 3-back. And then for the older adults, we found this effect, but it was only for the 3-back. They did not find this increase in accuracy for the 2-back.
So one very unexpected finding from our study was that the older adults and younger adults did not differ significantly in terms of accuracy, and this is particularly surprising because it contradicts many previous studies, including Dr. Bopp's meta-analysis. They found that younger adults consistently performed better in terms of accuracy than the older adults, but we did not find that to be true in our study.
And for the slow program, our results showed that as memory load increased, accuracy decreased, just as the previous program did.
We also found significant effects for the timing in this program, but they are different than the ones we found for the mixed program. So for the slow program, the effect was found for younger adults and older adults the same, that when the participant was looking at the letter for a longer period of time, this increased their accuracy significantly, but only for the 1-back. This is surprising because, as we've talked about, higher memory load makes the task harder, so you would think looking at the letter for a longer period of time would help improve your accuracy, but those are not the results that we found. We assume this happened because the slow program, like Matt said earlier, had so much total time that whether you're looking at the letter for a long time or the blank screen for a long time, it just didn't have an effect on your accuracy because you have so much total time to process it and make the correct decision.
So similar to the mixed program, the younger adults and older adults performed relatively the same. And again, this is very surprising because it contradicts the previous data.
And lastly, our FAST program, we only tested younger adults. And as you can see, there's still accuracy on the Y and memory load on the X. And the results showed that as memory load increased, accuracy decreased as well.
We found significant results for the manipulation of the timing in this program too. So if you look on the graph, you can see that when the younger adults were looking at the letter for a longer period of time, this significantly increased their accuracy scores across all memory loads. So for the 1-back, the 2-back, and the 3-back. This is what we predicted because the FAST program had very little time total. So if you were not looking at the letter for the longer period of time, it's on and off the screen very quickly. So that leaves very little time to process it and make the correct decision. So when participants were looking at the letter for the longer period of time, this significantly increased their accuracy scores as we expected.
So our our memory load hypothesis was supported by what we found. Accuracy decreased from 1 back to 2 back to 3 back. Our timing hypothesis was partially supported. The extra amount of time that the letter was presented on the screen helped for the fast program and the mixed program, but it did not help for the slow program.
And our age hypothesis was not supported. Overall, we found that there was no significant difference between the performance of younger adults and older adults in NBAC tasks. And this is surprising because it contradicts what we've previously read in previous studies about adult working memory. And our strategy hypothesis was supported, even though we don't have the results up. Our results did show that participants that did use the strategy performed better than participants who did not use any strategy.
So this study has many implications for the field of working memory. As we can see from our results, the timing of the NBAC affected how participants perform on the NBAC. For example, when items are on the screen for differing amounts of time, they're decaying in the region of direct access at varying rates. So the decay rate and the accessibility of the items in the region of direct access are affected by the timing of the stimulus. This means that the different timings of the NBAC could be causing participants to use different cognitive processes of their working memory. And this is important because many studies use the NBAC to measure working memory. So if they're all using different timings, they could all be measuring different cognitive processes. That being said, since our older adults did not perform significantly worse than our younger adults, this could mean that the research that we have previously seen that shows older adult deficits in working memory might not be due to focus switching, but might be due to different cognitive processes due to the different timings of the NBAC. In terms of future directions, we know that education is a protective factor against the decline of working memory, and many of our older adult participants were members of the lifelong learning program at Wofford, and so they were using education as a protective factor. And so future research could have a more diverse participant pool of older adults. Further, the participants of older adults performed very highly on the NBAC for the programs that we did administer to them. And so future research could give the older adults the 2T18B or the FAST program. So we may see the older adult deficits here in this program.
Thank y'all for listening.
Any questions for this group?
So how did you know if they used a strategy or not? Did you just ask them after the fact?
There was a open-ended strategy questionnaire at the end of the test that they could fill out as much as they wanted about if they used their strategy, if they didn't, and if they switched up strategies along the way, things like that.
They also said the older adults didn't complete the FAST program. Why was that?
So all of the previous research done with older adults and working memory points to the fact that they would not have been able to perform above 50% accuracy on the FAST program. So we had no reason to believe that they would be able to complete this program above 50%. But since we see such high performance of the older adults, Dr. Bopp is continuing that research and giving the FAST program to older adults this coming January, I believe.
You mentioned that you also measured reaction time. Did you see any differences between the young and the old in terms of their reaction time?
So we actually do have the graphs for that. So the younger adults were faster in their response times than the older adults, and it was a significant difference. However, we chalked that up to general slowing because as the memory load increased, the difference did not increase. There was no interaction. So we just chalked it up to general slowing. So, I mean, this group of older adults was really stellar.
All right, thank you.